short films on an amateur level. I'm Jake D'Annunzio, and I run a YouTube channel called XXII Legends, and I've been making my own sort of do-it-yourself home kaiju movies for many, many years now. And so what we're going to do, we have a presentation to go through, and then I'm going to show something a little special, and then we'll do Q&A toward the end. But if you have any questions throughout the panel, you are free to ask away. So, yeah, without further ado, so everyone starts somewhere, as with, anyone who makes movies. Every great director started out somewhere. I, like anyone else who's made their own kaiju films, I started out, with a little handheld camera, pushing Bandai figures together, which, looking back on it, isn't anything special, but once you, just keep moving forward, you practice more, you get better equipment. Like, here's some of my first kaiju movies that I made with better equipment. And over the years, you'll gain experience, different tips and tools to make your own films, and eventually they'll be looking a lot better. So what you'll need, of course, if you want to make any sort of type of movie, you're going to need a couple pieces of equipment. You can start out with something basic. I started out with like a little handheld camera. It wasn't even that professional. It probably shot in 240 or 144p that you might see on a really old YouTube video. So camera and a tripod. Tripod is something optional, but a camera, of course, you probably want to invest in a decent camera. Sometimes picture cameras that will just take a picture but no video, they can help you out from time to time if you plan on doing primarily stop motion, which is something we'll cover a little bit later. But if you have the money to invest in a video camera, that's definitely going to be worth your while. And of course, the tripod will always help, since that'll stabilize the camera and not have you have to stack a camera on books or something, which is what I did for a long while. Sometimes cameras you can buy on Best Buy. The camera that I use right now, I think, was $400 or $500. So if you work to invest in a good camera, then you should be good. Sets. Any kaiju movie has to take place on a set. You have a couple different options. You can, of course, green screen a set, which I do primarily. You can also use practical sets that you build yourself. There's kits that I use that I buy from my little local Michaels or other arts and crafts stores. You can buy these kits and they'll let you construct a set. I think we have something to show about that later. Yeah, you need to decide what sort of set. You can do even a combination of, a green or blue screen and a practical set to gain whatever sort of environment that you want, whether it's a grassland in a forest or a huge city to destroy. Software. So editing software is really, it depends on preference. If you're starting out with whatever's built into your computer, like Windows Movie Maker or iMovie, then that can definitely really limit you in your options for editing. But over time, you can invest in like $60 programs like Sony Vegas, which allow you to do more stuff like chroma keying, which will get rid of green screens, and add in lots of other cool effects that will really enhance your own movies. Recently, I invested in Photoshop and Adobe After Effects, which are both really fantastic programs if you have the money. They both actually have free trials you can do if you want to try those out. And there's lots of different choices for software that you can choose. So it really just depends on preference. And most importantly, what you need is an idea for your movie, which over time, like, sort of most ideas will come as shower thoughts, as most people call them, when you're driving or taking a shower, and you'll just have that little spark of inspiration, like, oh, I want to make a movie on that. So you can get a simple idea and eventually just transform that over time into a movie. Like, I'll sometimes spend nearly 6 months just planning out an entire movie in my head. When you have an idea and you're sort of getting the story in your mind, you probably want to like have a notepad open or something to write down ideas. That's something that I didn't do until recently, and it helps a lot when you write down a script or do storyboarding. because when you're just planning it out in your head and going like sort of guerrilla style when you're filming, it can be sort of a rougher cut when you put it all in editing in the very end. So yeah, different methods of making your own monster movie. So there's sort of two methods that a lot of people can use, and there's one more that requires a lot of skill, and we're going to discuss the pros and cons of each one as we go along here. The first method is just simply holding a Bandai figure in front of a camera and anything, and moving it around. This can allow for sort of more smooth movements and angles that stop motion might not always allow you with Bandai vinyl figures. Things like monster arts we'll cover in a second that you can use it for a lot more. Unfortunately, what holding something in front of a camera will limit you to is, as you hear, a lot of really close shots, and you can't really get any full body views while doing this since yeah, because you don't want to get your fingers in the shot at all. That's probably the biggest sin of any early kaiju movie maker. So next we have stop motion, and this is definitely the more sort of tedious but more rewarding of the two main methods. When you're first starting out in stop motion, you might think, oh, I'll just make a couple frames of animation and it'll look pretty good, but as you're seeing right here, this is sped up. This is about 7 minutes or so of animation on this Monster Arts figure to make what we see in a couple seconds here, about 3 seconds of footage overall. And if you watch like old stop motion animators like Ray Harryhausen, you can see the lengths that they take to really make these stop motion creatures come to life. And you know, this is just a basic shot of Godzilla roaring, and you can do a lot more with a lot of practice. A lot of my earlier stop motions, well, here's what you can do with some practice. You can make funny stuff like this.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, this was one of my first stop motions, and you can see how a lot of practice and experience will show you more frames of animation will definitely make a more smooth outcome in the very end. But it's all about finding your style. But actually the final method of making your own movie is something I don't see very often. It's when you make your own monster suits. If you've seen Billy DuBose's Godzilla Battle Royale, a really great fan film, he makes his own suits. That takes a lot of skill, obviously. But finding your style, however you want to make your own kaiju film. If you want to just hold things in front of a camera, or just stop motion, or a combination of both. Whatever way you choose, just whatever way suits you best and you find most easy to make your own film. Let's see. But yeah, sometimes like you might want to experiment a little bit. If you have always held things in front of a camera, you might want to at least try stop motion to see if maybe you like the way that that'll turn out better in your movie, and you might want to switch over to that. But when you keep playing around, you'll eventually see what you can get. Special effects are one of the most important parts of your amateur movie. It'll give you the illusion that your monster is really there, blowing up buildings and stuff. And when I started out, I was making explosions using animated GIF images that I found on Google Images. So if you look in a lot of different places, you can find your own special effects. But recently, I invested in some effects packs that you can buy online that have a lot of more action explosions and stuff that you can see. I think we'll see it here in a second when it pops up. But yeah, like here's an animated GIF explosion, and then now I can make something like that that looks a lot more real. But yeah, as you, like I say, just keep experimenting and keep practicing, get better, you'll learn what makes certain shots look really real. And in a second here, we'll sort of go through the process that a shot can take to make a final product. So we have the stop motion from earlier. If we key out the background, and then we have nothing. And then we have a new background, whatever you want in back of it. And then we'll darken all the contrasts and everything, add motion blur and rain, and you can get a pretty cool sort of rainy shot like this. But yeah, this obviously takes a lot of practice to get better at. Um, and in a second here, you'll see another shot that looks really simple. We just have Godzilla opening his mouth, and you can make it into firing atomic breath. And then we have a practical set here, as you can see, which obviously allows for a lot more sort of close-up shots of monsters walking around, so you don't have to green screen in trees and rocks and all that. So yeah, like a lot of shots, if you do a green screen, you can't really achieve this, but when you're doing this, you can be, oh, that tree is really there in front of the monster. So practical sets are definitely something worth checking into if you really don't like green screening everything in, which can make some shots look a bit fake. But once you, again, find your style, whichever one that you want to do, you'll eventually just get used to it over time. And one more tip, if you're going to film a movie monster on a green screen, don't do that. Be sure that you use a blue screen or something, otherwise you'll end up with a shot like that. And no one wants a shot like that.
No.
Yeah. And, alright, sound effects. Obviously you want to add a lot of atmosphere to your movies. Sound effects are one of those ways. And there's tons of different sound effects that you can do, ranging from monster roars, foot stomps, explosions.
Like the music in the background.
Yeah, we'll cover music here in a second, but sound effects, there's a lot of different resources. On YouTube, there's some royalty-free sound effects you can find. Toho, I believe, has also released a CD that has a ton of their monster roars on it. And there's also videos on YouTube of sound effects that people have ripped directly from the movies, which is another way to obtain them. If you pull up a movie and record certain parts that you want to play, like, I don't know, maybe Muto roars from the new Godzilla movie, then you can rip them straight from that and then use them in your film. But that's just one of the ways of getting sound effects. Obviously, well, we'll cover music here in a second, but sound effects, be sure that you're choosing, like, if your monster is supposed to be really heavy, you want to choose a bigger step sound effect, obviously.
Like the Godzilla 54, with sounds like that.
Yeah. Some editing software also let you change the pitch of the sound, so you can make a lighter footfall a little deeper. Music, as we just said, adds a lot of atmosphere. Like, if you're going to have a fast-paced action monster fight, then you want to have fast-paced action music to go along with it. Or if you're having a sad moment, you want to have sad music. And a lot of times music, it depends what kind of music you want to use. If you want to use music right from the Godzilla films, you might have to either buy the Godzilla movie CDs.
Where does Don mint to your computer?
Yeah,
From
that's
CDs.
always so what you can do. On YouTube, there's a lot of people who have uploaded lots of different soundtracks from Ultraman and Godzilla, which helps give you a really wide range of music. Anything else I wanted to cover music? I think that's about it. We'll skip ahead here to the last segment, which is getting your work noticed. Of course, if you're making a movie, you want to have other people see it, and of course you could just have friends and family come over and show them, but you want to get to a wider audience, and of course there's no better place to do that than YouTube. So it's easy, YouTube is a free site. You can just create an account and upload your movie there. And eventually, like, I started out in 2010, I think, and over time I've grown a little audience, and like, a lot of times YouTube comments will also give you constructive criticism. They might seem like they're being mean sometimes, but they just want to help you out and be like, oh, hey, here's how you can make this shot look better. And another way to get your work noticed is here at G-Fest. As you know, they host the amateur film contest, which is something that I always really enjoy seeing what every other person at the convention has to offer in terms of their own movies. So you can submit your film to that, or try and get into the film festival that's going on in the Midway room over there. Yeah, so next we're going to show a something that I'm really proud of. It's a little episode of a fan series that I'm making, and this is to show what you can do with years of experience and practice, and you can make something like this. This is an idea that I've had since 2012 or 2013, I think, and it's a fan series based on Zone Fighter, and so we'll take a look at this.
It's on your YouTube channel.
Oh, one will be soon. This is premiering right here.
I'm pretty sure I'm subscribed to you.
We might have to turn the volume off. Keep it quiet. So yeah, this is just to show if you have an idea and you really want to make the best of it. I worked this up over 2 or 3 years, like I just said. So yeah, I might have to face this towards you guys so you can hear the audio more. So that's a simple example of how you can turn, playing with your little Bandai toys into something a little bit more, what you really want to do, which is make movies. So now I think we're going to do sort of Q&A and open discussion. So you can ask any questions or share your own experiences making kaiju fan films if you want.
I saw your redubbing. Was it Final Battle from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2? And it was awesome.
Oh yeah, I think that was a while back actually.
Yeah.
When you do live action and put the background, well, how do you do that?
That's just green screening. You set up a huge green wall. You can buy them anywhere on Amazon. They sell them, and you just stand in front of it and film yourself and use your editing software to take the green out and put the new background
You do
in.
with the figures too.
Yeah.
How do you get, when you did flying, did you Photoshop your hand out?
Yeah, it was just like holding a figure in front of a camera, full body shot, and then photoshopping my hand out of it.
What editing software do you use?
I use Photoshop for editing pictures and Adobe After Effects for everything else, which is a good software if you have the money to invest.
Yeah, what's good for editing? What editing softwares would you recommend?
So if you're starting out, there's Sony Vegas you can buy for, I think, $60 if you buy just the normal version. And that's good if you're starting out. It lets you do green screening, it lets you put a lot of different effects in. And that's what I started out with. Unfortunately, it does have a tendency to crash a lot, and it can limit you in a couple of areas, but it works really well for what it was. This was the first video that I made that wasn't using Sony Vegas. So.
What about Final Cut Pro?
I haven't used Final Cut Pro, so I can't say for sure. I still use Sony Vegas actually for piecing footage together. I haven't been able to afford any other software, but really whatever you can use and find, you should get it to work, and you'll be able to do whatever you can with that.
You mentioned storyboarding. How much planning went into that before you did it? Did you storyboard? Did you have a grid of all the different events, artifacts you're going to have besides the storyboard?
So when I start out making a lot of these fan films, I'll sort of plan out key scenes in my head. Okay, I want this fight sequence. I want this these characters to appear. And first I'll sort of start out with a script and with all the dialogue and general stuff of what will happen. When you storyboard, you can just sort of lay out a sheet of paper or something and just grid it out. The sequence of events that you want to go is usually very helpful for monster fights. Although if you're doing a monster fight, you can also sort of improv your way through it, which can work. If you start them out in one pose, you can proceed to the next shot and so forth.
When did you first start making the films?
On any sort of level, I started when I was 4 or 5 years old with whatever Bandai figures I had. But on this sort of scale, I made my YouTube channel back in 2010, I believe, and I've just been sort of practicing and improving my work ever since. So.
Sorry, it's the mom asking questions. But how much? No, seriously, like how much time do you spend? Like I don't know, take a week. How much time do you spend like working on it or planning part of it? Or obviously, I'm guessing you're still in school, so I'm guessing you have to balance it more.
Yeah,
I'm just curious about how much time.
Yeah, summer's definitely a good time to do that kind of stuff. It sort of also depends, like, on some days you might not get that kick of inspiration that you want to do the movie or anything, but when you do get that motivation and inspiration to do whatever, I'll sometimes just work on it for as long as I feel until, you know, normal life calls. So.
What are you working on now?
After this, I've got, well, more episodes of this, hopefully, and then I've got sort of a short fan film that I'm hoping is going to be on a larger scale than what I'm normally used to doing. It'll definitely be more live action, sort of monster oriented than just sort of stuff like this.
The one we just watched, it was a half an hour long.
I think it's about 18, 20 minutes or so.
So how long would you say, a guesstimate, from the beginning to the end did that take for you to make? Not the storyboard part.
Yeah,
Actually, after the story was all set.
I think I started working on this final product back in February or March, and then I took sort of a break during May due to like school and finals and whatnot. And then just these past month in June, then I've really picked up again on it since I'm out of school and was able to finish it then. So.
It's like 3 months.
Yeah, about 3 months. Give or take, like with schoolwork, sometimes I can make it really hard.
Would you say most of the time was in the editing?
Yeah, probably.
Which of your videos are you most proud of?
Tough question. I would say I'm definitely like proud of this one. I've spent, like I said, 2 years planning it, and it's definitely a long time coming since this is a series, and series usually take a lot more to plan out than just a 5 or 10 minute little movie. But I'm also proud of one of my other movies that I posted last November for Godzilla's 60th birthday. It was called Airport Attack. I don't know if many of you have seen it, but that was something that I made in a week actually, because I was like, oh crap, I gotta make something for the 60th anniversary. And what it was just sort of a continuation of the airport fight that we never got saw in Godzilla 2014, and that was something fun to make because you got to sort of reimagine what that fight could have been.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's XXII Legends. If you look it up, you should be able to find it. It might be hard to spell.
Daikaiju Legend. Is that
Yeah.
one word or two?
Huh?
Is that one word?
That's one word.
Okay.
You ever done stop motion with the Bandai figures?
Yeah, we did a bit of stop motion segment earlier, and it takes a lot of practice because you got to get used to doing really small movements with figures if you want to get a smooth, fluid motion. Otherwise, your animation will sort of look a little choppy. But I've started doing a lot more stop motion recently. There was a bit in this, but I like to mainly just do sort of holding a figure in front of a camera and doing whatever, and that allows for a little bit more free range of movement, I think.
I have a question. So some of your effects, you had like monsters shooting beams and lasers and things like that. Are those built into Adobe After Effects, or do you have to get those effects from somewhere else? How do you make those?
Some of them, like the little lightning beam that came out of Zone Fighter, that's built into After Effects. After Effects is a really diverse program. I haven't explored too much of it yet. There's even like a particle plugin that you can put in, and it'll let you make your own particle effects, but I haven't yet to touch that yet. But otherwise, online, like I said, on Google Images, you can find simple animated explosions, or there's more professional looking packs of stuff that you can buy, which is where I get all my like fireballs and explosions from. Those definitely will improve over time.
Any big projects or like stuff that you wanted to do that you didn't want to, or like forgot to do it in the future?
Too many to count, really. Because I'll sort of get an idea for a project, like, oh, I can do this, and then I'll eventually just sort of lose interest and move on to something else. But there's definitely a couple things that I've wanted to come back to. Like even wanted to go back to some of my older fan films and sort of revamp those with the skills that I've learned today to improve upon those is definitely something that I've wanted to do for a bit.
Have you ever tried to make any other films besides kaiju or?
Yeah, I've made a couple of normal live action films. I haven't posted any of them on my channel. Especially when I was younger, I'd make a lot of live action stuff, although I was just running around the house with a camera, as a lot of people do when they're kids. But yeah, like if kaiju films are definitely something that's a little more tedious to make. So live action can definitely be a nice break from that. It's really all just about experimenting and what you want to do with your movie.
So you could buy some of those explosions and rays for the computer or something like that?
Yeah, there's a website, Video Copilot, I believe is the name. They've got a special effects pack that you can buy that's full of different explosions and fireballs. They're definitely something that you have to invest in because they're more professional looking effects, but they're definitely worth the price.
Give him.
Do you plan to move forward with this, like maybe becoming a director or doing stuff with bigger films?
Yeah.
Motion pictures and stuff?
Yeah, moving into the bigger leagues of becoming director is something I've really always wanted to do, and anyone who really wants to become a director or anything in the movie industry, like making short films like these is definitely a way to sort of get your early work out there and practice a lot more. Back in the day, a lot of young directors like Steven Spielberg, like he would use an old Super 8 camera to film his own movies, which obviously looking back on those are a lot different than what we have today. And luckily, today we have a lot of easy access to technology that we can use, like home video cameras and a lot of special effects you can use, so you can really play around. Like sky's the limit, really.
Have you ever tried to make a special figure that could be more articulated?
No, I'm not really too experienced in sculpting. I've custom painted a couple of figures. Most of them don't exactly turned out too amazing. But yeah, I've seen a couple of people who will take a sort of like a little skeleton for an articulated figure and put the sculpt of another figure over it, and that's definitely something I'm not experienced in, but if it's your specialty, you might be able to.
Because I don't, when I do my films, I don't use the Bandai figures. I use the Bandai figures as a prototype. I can make a figure, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of the figures are made out of wire and just paper. And of course, any kind of material I get my hands on. They're not really Larryhausen figures, but they can well get away with it.
Yeah, if you definitely just stick to normal Bandai Monster Arts figures, you're gonna find yourself being limited. But for what they are, they can really work a lot. And you're saying Ray Harryhausen. If you look at a lot of those old stop motion figures that they would do, they allow for a lot of really free range movement. Something that these obviously aren't really built for. So.
When you shoot, what camera do you use?
It's a Sony ABC HD camera, I believe. There's a couple different ones you can find online. If you go on.
What is it?
ABC HD. But yeah, on the Sony software website or even Best Buy, you can find tons of different cameras.
And that's what would you recommend?
Yeah, I definitely say it's really good. Anything that allows you to record Really good HD footage is definitely nice.
And the other thing you said was Vegas, Sony Vegas?
Sony Vegas, yeah, is
Okay.
editing software.
Thank you.
What program do you use in the episode of Film Fighter? The first episode, to be exact.
This was mainly made in After Effects, as I said earlier. There's actually a segment in the very beginning that I was still using Sony Vegas for. Yeah, like I said, After Effects and Photoshop for clearing out like hands and other stuff in the background. Yeah, After Effects is a much better program if you're willing to invest in it.
Have you ever worked with clay models or considered working with the lead?
I've considered it a lot of times, but I've always been too, I guess, sort of apprehensive about getting into it. 'Cause, you know, if you're working with clay, something could, you know, fall off and that'll just ruin your entire scene with stop motion. So I sort of like to play it safe a little more. That's why I tend to not do as much stop motion, but as I've begun to practice with it, it's definitely become a lot sort of easier to do.
Well, I agree on you on that, but most of my films are pure stop motion. And it takes, I think I got a film this year, but it's only part one. All the figures are made by hand. If everybody remember the giant claw, he's back. He's back. And he's fighting Godzilla 2014.
Is he better looking?
Well, you get to see him. He was supposed to fight King Kong, but everybody wanted Godzilla.
Wait, is Frankenstein?
I think that's a film that I definitely want to see.
The giant claw.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, God.
yeah, like we had a section earlier that's about just finding your style, like however you want to make a fan film. Like if your primary way is stop motion, then that's really great. Anyone can hold a figure in front of a camera, but you know, just sort of finding your niche, what exactly you want to do with the movie.
Well, anybody that does films, it's okay with me. I don't care how they do it.
Yeah, like
You know, if anybody does anything.
yeah, like if maybe you're on YouTube and you see someone's earlier kaiju films or something, and you can definitely give them advice in the comments and stuff. That's the great thing about YouTube. If you post your videos on there, you can get really easy feedback, and people will say, "Here's how you can make this and this better," and "Oh, why don't you try this and this?"
They ask me a lot of times to make their figures. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have the time. They want the giant claw. They want that monster from Attack on Titan. I could do it, but I just don't want to be, you know. Because I did a film for Professor Morte, for a proposed pilot for Adult Swim. Unfortunately, it didn't go through, and that messed me up, my schedule. I had to make the figures and everything. My mom made the clothes. You know, they had clothes and everything. It was fun to do anyway.
Yeah, definitely finding time to do your film whenever you want to is definitely something that you need to plan out ahead. Like, if you need to wait, you might need to wait a couple of days to film what you want, but that obviously gives you more time to plan about it, and you might go back on something and say, oh, maybe I should change that.
Can I just ask, I'm just curious, how old are you?
I'm 16.
Wow. You're very talented.
I think we should wrap it about up.
You're lucky.
Nice done.